The first collision. It was dark out. Out of the darkness, the street lamps could illuminate only old, knobby willow trunks with strange branches at their tops. Snowflakes twirled about in the air, sometimes falling, other times rising, as though they had not yet decided where to land. And why should they? They're so light. If they want, they'll float back into their thick home cloud, which will fly them somewhere else tomorrow, so that not a single flake should have to spend its life on a Warsaw street. Adam was squatting in his bathroom and pouring all the world's ingredients into a glass jar. To start, he put in whatever he could find in the laundry room: detergent, bleach, shampoo and some stuff his mother used to scrub the bathroom. He sliced up some soap with a knife and added that, as well as whatever he could get his hands on from the kitchen: baking soda, caraway seeds, sunflower seed oil, and who knows what other doubtful things. He didn't do this often, but he had done it enough to already have several such jars stuffed under the bathtub. When his mother cleaned so thoroughly that she found them, she asked with furrowed brow, "What kind of mud dumplings are you making here?" Heat from the wood stove didn't carry into the bathroom, making it the coldest room in the house. Adam touched the water pipe with a finger. It was cold and a bit damp. He felt around the old, cracked linoleum to see what might be under it. He found interesting things sometimes: old coins, buttons off pillowcases, maybe a hairpin. The hamper was also interesting. The laundry in there might be as old as the Second Polish Republic. Dirty but fine. The kind of old bed sheets you didn't throw out because they had nice lace, even though they were fragile from age. They were good for throwing over your head and playing ghosts, or for throwing over tables and chairs to make tents or nests. Little Adam was a quiet child, quite independent and well liked by grown-ups. The only things beyond him were shoelaces and buttons. Of course his mother had taught him how to tie his shoes, but when he was doing it himself, she lost patience before he could finish, bent down and tied them for him, sighing, "How are you so slow?" Even before he had started school, Adam knew the alphabet and had read the Bible from cover to cover. In those moments when he wasn't reading, he played with his rabbits. Aside from rabbits, Adam acknowledged the existence of no other animal in the world. He had an entire warren of rabbits, each with its own name, life story and character. One's name was Smooth. Smooth was an old purple pincushion in the shape of a rabbit's head, which Adam's grandmother had made when she was a little girl. Adam forbade putting needles in Smooth. Another was Mimsu, who was very small, worn rabbit likely as old as the beginning of the 19th century. She was missing ears and a tail and reminded you of a dust bunny. Why exactly Adam included her among the other rabbits is unclear. Then there was Rubber Band, who was a bad rabbit, who always wanted to get out of the house. He got lost everywhere, now in a neighbor's garden, now in a sandbox, although a year later, Adam did dig the insubordinate bunny out and brought him home. Eventually, the animal did manage to break free. He was lost completely in the forest moss, while the family was mushrooming some autumn. Things got very out of hand when Adam saw a plastic bunny with polka dot pants in the window of a toy shop. Naturally he got it. Unfortunately, it turned out that such rabbits come with pants of many different colors, and Adam begged and begged until he also had gotten purple, green, red, blue and white. But things did not end there. Others wore the more specific turquoise, plum red, and light pink briefs. One was even entirely pantless. Clearly someone had forgotten to go over him with a paintbrush. Though their faces were identical, Adam distinguished these animals unfailingly. They were not some nameless mass, but individual rabbits, and he was extremely insistent that other people use their names as well. He would gather them into his lap, waddle up to his father or mother at the table, line up his pants wearers like soldiers, and demand sternly, "What's this one's name? And this one?" The long-eared forefather of all of them was an old shaggy grey animal called Favourite, who had been gifted to Adam for his 2nd birthday. He had once been very soft and the color of egg yolks, but his nose and eyes were awfully tattered and had been sewn back on many times. Adam did not go to sleep without Favourite, but looked for him, and found him, no matter where he was, whether on dressers or under beds. Favourite is still around today. He is at the family's country cottage in a cold room that is empty, save for a bunch of junk. A toy's life is a sad one. 2 or 3 years of obsessive love, and then decades, if not centuries, of neglect and oblivion. Indeed, the object of one's love is unimportant. Is it not rather the time colored by that love that is meaningful? That at least is not forgotten. One very sickly rabbit's name was Agnes. Adam's mother had made Agnes out of a polka-dot dress she used to wear in her younger days. The cotton wool on Agnes' body was matted and falling apart, and she was constantly needled and patched until she gave out completely. One wood-bodied, leather-eared creature was called Sitting Bunny. The one with silver fox fur and a wooden block head was called Soda. Every kind of mew, grouse, rebel and stripe popped up constantly, and Eva remembers it as if in a single Christmas Adam was given wholly 23 conies, 2 of which, Dad, Pete and Punessa, were completely identical to everyone but Adam, who distinguished them somehow. Maybe one of them had a very slightly lazy eye. The rabbits were real. They were so real that Adam's parents felt a growing sense of unease as Adam became convinced that he himself was one of them too. The omnipotent rabbit, in fact, who cared for his people. But then a horrible thing happened. Cats appeared. Not real cats. Adam imagined them. MMM was the great and powerful Cat King who lived and led his armies behind the cabinet. His great nemesis were the brothers Fire Rabbit and Ice Rabbit. Fire Rabbit was tricksy like Prometheus. So began the war of cats and rabbits. Of course the rabbits are afraid, but now they've plucked up because war's been declared. Adam wrote in big letters on a piece of paper, his J's and S's all upside down. Knives fly, spears, daggers, better weapons, bomb on the road, smoking cat heap. Below he drew a terrible column of rabbit pants warriors, all brandishing swords above their heads and hollering, "Ah!" They had their own flags and coats of arms. Adam did not only study the Bible, but all kinds of other books as well. He even sometimes tried to write out his rabbits' names in Greek letters. In parts of this picture, he drew the rabbits' enemies with one body and at least 10 heads in order to fit more warriors into the picture, and also to give the monsters a truly frightening look. All future Mackiewicz scholars should ponder this episode very seriously. Does his later interest in politics not shine through already? His wish to explain the world and make it a better place? A place more worth living? His interest in the categories of self and other? No. His interest in other languages? His hunger for esteem? His ability to both generalize and to see the particulars in generalities? And to see plum red pants and lazy eyes? After the bloody battles between the cats and the rabbits, Adam was very sad and wrote at the bottom, "Creature, I'm sad. You hang in there, but I am sad." Recognizing his precociousness, Adam's parents decided to put him straight into 2nd grade, and this was a lifelong disservice. Who puts up with a kind of twerp who's both younger and smarter than they are? Adam was constantly hit in school. His bag was thrown down hallways or staircases until it burst open, and then, when out came a little rabbit alongside his books and notebooks, things got truly out of hand. It was a long saga, but eventually there was nothing left to do but put him into another school, and this changed his life quite completely. As early as the first cool night of the first quarter, 2 boys carried Adam home, and when Pani Mackiewicz went to open the door, she saw her only offspring hunched over and wild-eyed. The boys had nursed him for some hours behind a warehouse before bringing him home. He simply had to sleep himself sober. Eva knew of no other remedy. As they were kindly, Christian, forgiving parents, they had no idea what to do for Adam. His mother looked around with sad eyes as if at nothing. She had tried after all, meant well, been up and down principals' offices, and what had come of it? Out of the frying pan and into the fire. Adam's father lived in so different a reality that the facts of the matter rarely, if ever, reached him. And what goes on in a young person's heart is a mystery anyway. Pan Mackiewicz was seriously stunned when it reached his eyes that not only did his son apparently now not drink, but he was attending the meetings of heretics as well. He even tried to speak to Adam about it. Adam's life was moving onward in an unknown direction like a train off the rails. Strange people started to hang out at the Mackiewicz house. They wore weird clothes and had bony faces. One gangly young man strained Pan and Pani Mackiewicz's nerves to no end. This one had a unique gait, a kind of limp, slithering way about him, as if each limb were liquid and free to dangle in its own direction. His voice was harsh and carried throughout the house, and when the elder Pan Mackiewicz had listened to the bellowing young Savisha's uncontrolled laughter for 3 hours, his patience broke, and he threw the boy out of the house. "Listen, man, it's time to head home," he said, eyeing Savisha angrily from the door. "Some of us have to get up early, and who's going to sleep with you here hollering all the time?" Suliswav obeyed immediately, even recognizing that he'd been over the line, and went to the front door to put his shoes on. He sat on the floor to do so. It's worth noting that all of Adam's friends sat on the floor when they put on or took off their shoes. Perhaps someone ought to have gotten them a bench. The other guy bumming around their house all day was quite the opposite. He had the kind of golden hair you might find on an ancient god of grain. He was short and stocky, and his name was the biblical Theophil. Sending him away was always agonizing. Theophil wore tall army boots with long laces and many lace holes, which meant that Pan or Pani Makievich had to stand for long, torturous minutes by the door until Theophil, in no hurry at all, finished strapping these massive stompers to his feet. The only one of Adam's friends his parents liked at all was Arkadiusz Rusnak, a young man from a house over, who was certainly weird, but tolerably. They made thermoses of coffee in the kitchen and took them outside to stroll and climb things. Adam's mother watched them from the window. There they walked, one tall and lanky with a small hat and a big brow, the other short, with pants hiked up above his waist, suspenders over an undershirt, and the undershirt under a jacket. Rusnak had picked up 2 pairs of the same shoes in different colors, and he always wore them mismatched, red on the right and brown on the left, or the reverse, so they would wear out at the same rate. He did the same with socks. It was quite a unique and modern approach to style, and yet a very simple and resourceful way to be original. But unlike the other boys, who were loud and annoying, Rusnak was polite, quiet and agreeable. He got on nobody's nerves. "Good morning, Pani Makievich," he greeted, genteelly, offering his hand to Eva. There were earnest, friendly eyes behind his round glasses. All anybody wanted to do with Sulislav Savisha, on the other hand, was throw him out as soon as possible. He was an unwelcome presence in his own home at 14, and the only person who thought he deserved plucky and a war broom was his grandmother. It was quite certain that after elementary school, not one of these 3 had worn the typical puffer jacket boys their age normally wore. It's therefore no wonder that they named their secret club Plaže, or trench coats. They were unique, chosen, other than others. And this was no superficial adolescent pose. They were deeply and truly otherwise, smart and gifted. The world responded by kicking them out of school one by one. That was little wonder, given then that one of their big weeks was Jerzy Niemiec, a pallid, highbrow young man who'd been held back several times at school, and who had understood the uselessness of living at only 17. He lay in bed for days, ashtray in front of his nose, and moved for absolutely nothing. Girls came to him themselves until he was absolutely sick of them. There's no need to be an especially big thinker. Depth is enough. If you go down all roads in your mind, there's no reason to get out of bed. It won't change anything. The end result is the same. Absolutely nothing. Adam did not have such an avant-garde worldview. In the first place, he had to struggle harder to get girls, and after that, struggle a whole lot harder to get rid of them. His first was Lilita, a young woman with fire-red hair, who wrapped him around her finger so completely that she upset the rest of the gang. The pair dedicated themselves exclusively to each other and dropped out of sight hand in hand. It's not as if there was anything so special about this girl, aside from her peculiar knack for moving about unseen. From time to time, Pani Makievich was startled as if at nothing, though she had a vague sense that someone else was in the house, shining their penetrating eyes onto her back. When she turned around with a start, she saw nobody. Sometimes she had a fuzzy sense that a quiet laugh echoes from somewhere, or that a cup or a spoon had moved to a different place. But all she could ever find to confirm this suspicion were a few strands of long red hair. It was instead Adam's father who stumbled in on the couple. Incidentally, in the middle of the day, Pan Makievich came home from the chancery to find them hammered and naked in the kitchen. His mouth dropped open, and he gaped silently at his son, who was naked as his namesake, and, in truth, was afraid to look over at the red-haired child of Satan, who was gently and foggily laughing at him. "Out!" the clerk coughed dryly. "Out of my house!" No one has any clear memory of what happened next. But it is a fact that Adam went home no longer. It was his first collision with the world.